Welcome back to Backspace Academy. In this practical lab, we're going to introduce you to the management, security and analytics services of AWS. And then we're going to use one of these management services, the AWS CloudWatch service, to create an alert whenever our bill is estimated to exceed a certain limit. In the management tools category, one of the tools that we'll be using quite a bit will be CloudFormation, especially if we are a SysOps administrator or a developer. And what CloudFormation does is that you can write a JSON document or a YAML document, effectively a text file, and you can define exactly what your architecture should be. So you can define a virtual private cloud, you can define EC2 instances and all this sort of stuff, and you can define that in a file. And then the CloudFormation service will grab that CloudFormation template. It will create a CloudFormation stack which will deploy all of those services for you automatically. The big advantage of that is that because we are now defining all of our infrastructure in a JSON or a YAML document, we can use Git or any other version control system to manage that document. And all of a sudden our infrastructure will be treated in the same manner as we treat our code. And so if we want to make an update, we update our YAML or our JSON CloudFormation template and we redeploy our infrastructure. If we have any issues, we can go back to a previous version and roll that back if we have any problems. So it's very similar to what you would do when you're developing software and rolling out updates to software. You can do the same thing with your infrastructure. Another area that we're going to be using quite a bit, or another tool that we'll be using, is CloudWatch. And that provides monitoring of our services. For example, if we have a server, we could monitor the performance of that server, and we could give off alarms that would alert us to problems if that server goes down or if that server becomes overloaded. We can also use CloudWatch alarms to trigger an event for an auto-scaling group. So if the EC2 instances are getting overloaded within an auto-scaling group, then CloudWatch can send an alarm to the auto-scaling group to launch more instances. And we can also set low set points for CloudWatch, so where the demand on these EC2 instances, for example, goes below a certain level, then we can also use that to trigger an alarm for an auto-scaling group to reduce the number of EC2 instances we have. We also have OpsWorks, and that is another deployment tool like CloudFormation, but it uses chef recipes. It doesn't use a JSON template. It uses chef recipes for deployment of that infrastructure. You don't need to be an expert in chef for the AWS Certified Associate course, but if you want to learn about chef, go to learn.chef.io and there's some very good resources there on that. But again, you don't need to know chef to pass the AWS Certified Associate exam. You just need to know the basics of OpsWorks and understand that chef is what is driving that. We also have CloudTrail, and that is a really good service for security and auditing perspectives. What that does is that it continuously monitors all of the API calls in our infrastructure. So for example, if we have a situation where we have an attack that has come through our firewall, or if we have an attack that has come from within our infrastructure from, for example, a rogue employee, we can continuously monitor what is going on. So anything that happens in the AWS console, for example, if you launch an EC2 instance using the AWS console user interface, that will send an API call to AWS for that to happen, and that will be picked up by CloudTrail. So if you find that something suspicious is happening, you can react to that, and you can also you can integrate that with CloudWatch, so that it can provide alarms that can alert you to any security issues that may have occurred. Also, after an event, if you want to look at what happened after a security event occurred, you can look at the CloudTrail logs and see exactly what happened. Another management tool there is the Trusted Advisor, which is an expert system provided by AWS. And what it does, it will run a scan of your existing infrastructure and it will advise you on things to change. It will advise you on areas of performance. It will advise you on areas of costs. It will advise you, of course, on areas of security. And if you go through and use Trusted Advisor, it's a very good tool because there might be something that you haven't picked up on, and then you can take corrective action to close that gap. Now, the most important category of all being the security, identity, and compliance. The main one there is the Identity and Access Management Service, or IAM, and that is how we manage access to our AWS account. So we automatically, when we create an AWS account, we have a login for our AWS account being a root login. So that provides unlimited access to our AWS account, and we don't want to use that. So what we do is we create different users that can access our AWS account, and we have fine-grained control around the permissions that they have within our AWS account. So we can create multiple users with different levels of permissions. We could have a general user, or we could have an administrator user. We could have a finance user that would only have access to our finance area. And we can do that all using our Identity and Access Management Service. We can also group these users into IAM groups. And we can also have roles that can be used by EC2 servers that can allow them to access different areas of our AWS account. The next service there is the AWS Directory Service, and that looks after authentication of third parties that want to access our AWS account. For example, you might have a mobile application that has millions of users, and those users need to upload files to Amazon S3 or something like that. Now, that's not going to be practical to do. You're not going to be able to create millions of users using identity and access management. It's just not going to be able to be done. And even if it was able to be done, it wouldn't be practical at all. So the AWS Directory Service can use, for example, AWS Cognito, and that will provide an authentication service, and that can be integrated with other authentication services such as Facebook or Google. And so we can authenticate our users based upon that, and then the directory service will manage the permissions that are defined for that. We could also use the AWS Directory Service as a service for Microsoft Active Directory as well, and we can use it for linking between third-party LDAP directory services as well. The next one there is the Certificate Manager, and that enables us to be able to create SSL certificates so that we can have HTTPS encrypted traffic to and from our websites. And we also have the Encryption Key Management Service, or KMS, and that is a secure service for managing our encryption keys that we use for encrypting our data that may be in data stores, or could be in S3 or whatever, and we can use those encryption keys and make sure that they're safe by using the KMS service. And finally there we've got the Web Application Firewall, or WAF. Now that is a firewall layer that we can put in front of our infrastructure. And that is additional to the firewall settings that we would set up in, for example, our Linux operating system, and also additional to our EC2 security groups, which are also similar to a firewall. So this is an additional layer of defense that we can use for our applications. The last category that I want to talk about is the analytics category, and the areas that we need to understand for a associate level certification is AWS Elastic MapReduce, or EMR, and that is AWS's Hadoop as a service. And Hadoop is an analytics service for analyzing large amounts of data. If you want to learn more about Hadoop, just go to hadoop.apache.org and you'll learn all about Hadoop. You don't need to be any particular knowledge of Hadoop for an associate certification. You just need to know the basics around Elastic MapReduce and understand that Hadoop is operating to make that happen. And we'll talk more about that later in the course. We have Elasticsearch, and that is the Elastic.co's Elasticsearch application, which has been provided on AWS as a service, and that gives you search engine capabilities for your applications. We have Amazon Kinesis, which is a very rapidly growing service, and that enables us to collect real-time data as streams and analyze that also in real time, which is really quite powerful, especially when you start talking about things such as internet connected devices and Internet of Things applications, where you're collecting a large amount of data on a real-time basis, and you may want to have access to that data in real time. Amazon QuickSight, which again can integrate with Kinesis to provide data visualization, and it can also be used with static data. If you've got data in, for example, an S3 bucket, you can visualize that data using Amazon QuickSight, and it's very similar to the way you would use Tableau, or if you're a Java programmer, the way you would use BERT for visualizing of data. But it's a very good enterprise scale solution that provides a really high quality service at around about, well less than half the price of an equivalent commercial service. And finally there we've got the data pipeline, and that allows us to process and move data between different applications, and it orchestrates a lot of this stuff for us. And behind that is clusters of compute capacity that make that happen. Okay, so let's have a go at using one of these management tools. So as we stated before, we're going to create a billing alert that's going to send us an email whenever our costs are exceeded or estimated to be exceeded. So the way we're going to do that is that we're going to use the AWS Management Console, and we're going to enable billing or billing alerts within the Billing and Cost Management Console. And then we're going to create a metric, a CloudWatch metric, that is going to monitor those billing costs. And when they exceed a certain limit, then that will notify, or the CloudWatch service will notify an SNS topic to send us an email. Okay, from the AWS Management Console, the first thing we need to do is that we need to enable billing alerts. So we go to our account menu and we go to the billing dashboard. And when we're in the billing dashboard, just go on to the left-hand side here to Preferences. And we just need to make sure that we have checked Receive Billing Alerts and save those preferences. And then go back to the console. Now what we need to do is that we need to go into CloudWatch and we need to create a CloudWatch alarm that is going to trigger whenever these costs are exceeded for the month, or the estimated costs are going to be exceeded. So we're going to Services, and then we look into the Management Tools and we'll find CloudWatch. And then we just jump into Alarms, and we need to create an alarm. Now we've got a number of metrics here that we can use. The ones that we're concerned with are the billing metrics, but we have a whole heap of others there, and we'll talk a lot about those going on into the course further on. But for now, we're just going to create a billing alert. So we're going to use the total estimated charge as a metric. So when we set a limit on that, if it goes over it, it will trigger an alarm for us. So we'll just click on that. Now what we need to do is we'll just go down to here, is we need to select that metric, and then we click on Next. We give the metric a name. And what we need to do now is that we need to put in a set point there. So what is the point where we want to be receiving an email that there is a problem? So if it's, $1,000, is it $100, or maybe we start off with $10. So we'll just make it there $10. So when our costs are looking to, our estimated costs are looking to exceed $10, we'll receive a email from the SNS service actually. And just scroll down to actions. So what we need to do is define what actions are taken when this alarm changes state. So what we want to do is that when there is an alarm go off, we want to send a notification to, and we're going to send it by email. So we're going to click on a new list, and we'll give our notification topic a name, and then we'll put in our email address. Now, once we've done that, we can create an alarm. Now, what's going to happen now is that we will have a notification that we've subscribed to a SNS topic, and that we need to confirm that we are going to subscribe to that SNS topic with our email address. And so what's basically happening here is that we've created a CloudWatch alarm. And at the same time, by doing that, we've also created an SNS topic. And this CloudWatch alarm is going to notify this SNS topic, and when it does that, the SNS topic will send out an email, or the SNS service will send out an email to us to alert us that there is a problem with this CloudWatch metric that has been exceeded. Now, when you receive that email and you click on the link inside that email, you will get this page saying that the subscription has been confirmed. So that's looking pretty good. So I'll just close out of that. Now back in the management console, I'll just close out of that, or I can actually now view the alarm. And it's saying pending confirmation, but if I click on that and if I refresh the screen, it's now all ready to go. So now we've actually created that monthly billing alert, and it's there up and running, and we can see there when the estimated charges exceed 10 hours for 6 hours, we're going to have an email sent out to us. How do we know there's an email? Because we can go into our simple notification service and check. So let's do that. So we go into services and we go into simple notification service. So I just listed them there alphabetically, but it'll be in the messaging area here. So simple notification service. And now we can just have a look at the topics now. And we can see here we've got a topic that's been done there. So let's have a look at that. And there we can see there is our monthly billing alert topic. Okay, so we'll just finish up there. So you've done quite a bit. We've gone through quite a number of very short and quick labs. So you'll be getting more and more used to the AWS Management Console and some of these services and how they all interact together. Now, we're not going to tear this one down and clean it up because we'd like to keep it there because I think it's a good idea to have billing alerts. So we'll just leave it up and running, and every time that you are looking to exceed your monthly cost of $10, it'll send you an email and you can change that and decrease it or increase it or whatever you want to do. So I'll see you in the next section.